This is Dr. Julie Lesnick, Professor of Anthropology and researcher of human evolution. You are listening to Digital Watches Are a Pretty Neat Idea with your hosts, Jeff and Brian. They are saying a big hello to all intelligent life forms everywhere. And to everyone else out there, the secret is to bang the rocks together, guys.
Hi there, and welcome to Digital Watches Are a Pretty Neat Idea. This is Brian, and I'm with my friend Jeff, and we'll be talking about Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy in all its forms. But before we do that, let's listen to a message from one of our proud sponsors.
The Vogon Poetry Appreciation Society is proud to announce that poetry appreciation chairs are now available to the public. You will now be able to strap electrodes to your temples and attach yourself to a battery of electronic equipment. There are imagery intensifiers, rhythmic modulators, alliterative residulators, and simile dumpers. They are all designed to heighten the experience of the poem and make sure that not a single nuance of the poet's thought was lost. Not only does it enhance Vogon poetry, but poetry of any kind. Listen to Ode to a Small Lump of Green Putty I Found in My Armpit One Midsummer Morning, or my favorite bath time gurgles like you have never heard them before. But wait, there's more. These appreciation chairs also work with music. There is no better way to fully experience a choir of over 2 million robots singing the Sirius Cybernetics Corporation company song Share and Enjoy exactly a flattened fifth out of tune. You might expect to have to pay a gigantic pew for a chair like this, but it can be yours today for just 4 ningies plus processing. If you act now, we will send you a second poetry appreciation chair absolutely free. Just pay processing. Order today. This product is not endorsed by the Mid-Galactic Arts Nobbling Council. Hello, this is Jeff. This is the section I like to call What in Life, the Universe, and Everything Are They Talking About? This is where I will summarize everything we are talking about this episode. We started the game and we were in the dark in every way possible. And then we were on Earth. We went back into the dark and then we were on a Vogon ship. We went back into the dark and then we were on the Heart of Gold. We went back into the dark and then we were on Traal. We went back into the dark, and then we were back on the Heart of Gold. We went back into the dark, and then we were on Damagran. We went back into the dark, and then we were back on the Heart of Gold. We went back into the dark, and then we were at a party. We went back into the dark, and then we were back on the Heart of Gold. We went back into the dark, and then we were back where we started, on Earth. We went back into the dark, and then we were back on the Heart of Gold. We went back into the dark, and then we were in a war chamber and a maze. We went back into the dark, and then we were back on the Heart of Gold. We went back into the dark, and then we were inside the whale. We went back into the dark, and then we were back on the Heart of Gold. At last, we were able to leave the Heart of Gold, and we were finally on the planet Magrathea. Hey Brian, how you doing today?
I'm doing great, Jeff. How are you?
Well, I feel beat.
Beat?
Yes, we just played the BBC's 30th anniversary edition of the Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy text adventure game, and it is rough.
What did we spend, about 12 hours almost?
Well, we didn't spend anywhere near the amount of time that we might have because we did lots of hints and cheats and walkthroughs just to get through this so we could record it. And the first thing I will say is everything I have heard about this game is true.
There you go. Absolutely. I mean, I remember this game from way back.
Oh, absolutely. This game came out in 1984. I didn't play it back in 1984, but I do have an original copy of it. So in the box, you get all kinds of wonderful things. You have the Order for Destruction of Arthur's house. You have an order for destruction of the Earth. At least, I guess that's what it says because it's written in Vogon. We have a don't panic button, some peril-sensitive sunglasses. We have pocket fluff and a small bag that contains a microscopic space fleet. I really can't see it in there, but I'll take their word for it.
We'll have to get some pictures up on the site or something about that stuff.
Yeah, maybe we can take some and dump them in our YouTube feed right about this point.
That'd be awesome.
All right, I'm going to say it's not impossible to complete the game without hints, but it's highly improbable.
Oh, yes, absolutely. I recall playing the game. It had to be close to when it came out. And when we played it yesterday, it was different because they had a special type of interface.
Okay.
Right, where they showed you what you had in your inventory and they showed you some of the details of the object that you were actually looking at in another window.
Yeah, so on the BBC's website, you can find the 30th anniversary edition and you can currently play it. But like he was saying, it's not the same thing as the original game because they've added a bunch of graphics and cheats and shortcut buttons.
Absolutely. When I played it originally, it was, I'm trying to remember, was it Zork or something in one of the original text games where all you had was you're standing in the woods and there's a cabin to your north. Yes. And it's literally a text game. It is prompted by whatever response you give, and you have to kind of pay attention to where you are and know where you want to go and remember every detail of what you've seen.
And type everything correctly.
Yeah, they don't give you much option there. They need it to be exact.
Yes. One of the things that I heard about this game, and it is in a way true and in a way not true, which is the game lies to you.
Yes.
So there's two lies that it does. The one lie, it will eventually tell you it's lying, kind of like, ha ha ha, I was just lying. But the other ones, they don't. And the only thing I guess I want to say about that is don't always take no for an answer.
Yeah, that's absolutely true. There was a couple of occasions where mostly where you're attempting to go in a certain direction and they tell you no, and eventually they say, oh, yeah, well, we were just kidding.
Yeah, right. I want to go in this room. Oh, you can't go in this room. No, I want to go in this room. No, you can't go in this room. Are you sure? Yes. Okay. It's like, no, that's just mean.
Yes.
And I'm not going to say that the game wasn't entertaining, because it was entertaining, but it definitely was not fun.
Okay. I mean, I had fun playing with you, but I can understand what you mean. It wasn't a fun game to play.
Think of it like golf.
Yes.
I've not played lots and lots of golf, but I've played some golf, and I've enjoyed a bunch of rounds of golf.
Yes.
But I've never said, boy, that was fun after a round of golf. Same thing with this.
Okay.
Yeah. A part of the game that I specifically did not enjoy was that in at least the first couple of stages, it will let you advance to the next stage without completing all of your objectives.
Right. The way I was looking at that is the game was specifically designed to make you fail and then have to restart in a previous area. And there were a number of occasions where we found that to be true.
Oh, yeah, that happens over and over and over. But when you're going from one level to the next, it should make you die if you didn't complete everything. So you know there's something left to do. When you get all the way to the end of the game and realize that there was something in level 1 that you needed to do, you can't just go back to level 1 and do it and be done. You've got to go back to level 1 and then play the entire game over again.
You're absolutely right. When we played this game, or when I played the game originally, I have very distinct memories of trying to orchestrate my way through the different levels. And frankly, I never got further than the Babelfish scene or the Babelfish scene. I was totally flummoxed. I tried everything I could think of to do, and then I just sort of quit trying.
Yeah, I understand. Using the Babelfish as an example, I feel that knowledge of the book is both a help and a hindrance. because there are things like the Babel fish that you're sitting there going, haha, I know when I get this, I can just stick it in my ear. Well, when you get the Babel fish, it flies in your ear automatically.
Right.
You don't have to have any kind of guessing game of what do I do with this fish now that I have it.
Right.
There's also the guide, and if you look in the guide, because you can consult the guide about everything, it will tell you what to do with the Babel fish. So if you just thinking I was going to skip a step and not have to read the guide, well, you don't have to read the guide anyway.
Right. And we're jumping ahead a little bit because obviously the Babel fish is not one of the first things that happens.
Yeah.
But as a challenge in the game, you can get to that level with knowledge of what happens in the book because it's pretty well parallel up until that point.
Very much so. With succeeding the level objectives, one of the things that I was also confused by, and I think you were too from our conversations, is you thought you failed the level, but you see in your inventory that you've completed your objective. And you're like, oh, I did it somehow. And then you're positively certain you completed the level, and you look at your inventory and you're like, where did that go? So it's another one of those frustrating parts of this game.
Yes, I'm not sure. I guess we're going to end up spoiling some areas. That's just the nature of this kind of a discussion. For instance, when I first played the game, this was prior to most internet searches. And so certainly I did not have the opportunity to scan knowledge or talk to someone or at least on the internet about how I can get an answer to or how I can move forward.
No, in fact, in the box that I have is a little, if you really need a hint, mail this in and buy one of our hint books.
Yeah, and I'm trying to remember. I don't recall having done that. I must have been playing from an original game, but I think I was probably playing on someone else's computer, so I might not have been playing a copy where I had that. Because, frankly, the different material that you actually reviewed earlier does have some indication and clues as to how important certain aspects of the game are.
Yes.
It's important to have those visual pieces of reference in order to progress.
Yes. So the game is divided up into 10 parts. So I'm just going to go over the parts they have listed on the website. So part 1 is on the Earth. Part 2 is in the dark. Part 3 is on the Vogon ship. Part 4 is aboard the Heart of Gold. There's also a part 4 and a bit aboard the Heart of Gold again, but it's really more like part 11 because that happens at the end of the game.
Correct.
Part 5 is on Tral. Part 6 is on Damogran. Part 7 is at the party. Part 8 is the Earth Revisited. Part 9 is the War Chamber and Maze. And part 10, inside the whale.
Well, and that's a great analysis of the game, but I do want to point out that one thing that we quickly determined is once you got past part 4, parts 5 through 10 were randomly selected based on whatever the computer was feeling like doing at the time.
Correct, absolutely. Yes. So when you play the game, you're not going to play them in this order because you will go to random places and back to places you've already been that you don't need to be. That was another one of the things that kept the game longer than it needed to be.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So part 1 is on Earth. And if you've read the book or listened to the radio series or watched the TV show, you know the goal of this level. Get off the Earth before it's destroyed. The problem is trying to figure out how to do it in the amount of moves you are allowed by typing the correct basic commands. They give you a certain amount of time to do it. So it's not like if you get stuck, you can just keep trying and trying and trying and trying. It's like, oh no, Earth's destroyed. Start over. You're in the dark.
You're in the dark and it's time to start again.
Yeah. And coincidentally, part 2 is called In the Dark. This game keeps you in the dark a lot, both literally and figuratively. The game is not linear, as he mentioned, and there's a random aspect to it. and you go to and from the dark multiple times in this. In the Dark is definitely a level, but it is a different level every time you get into it.
Right, and I know it's not really a spoiler, but when you're in the dark, it tells you that you can't see, hear, feel, taste,
Right.
or smell
You have no senses.
anything. So
Yeah.
there's the five senses are blocked out, and it's a repeated pattern that goes through it.
And this isn't just for the In the Dark. This is for the whole game. I hope you like waiting. Because this game has a maddening amount of times when all you're supposed to do is wait for other things to happen or wait for time to pass. And being in the dark, when you can't do anything or move or see or hear or taste, you just wait. And you wait. And you wait. And you wait. Then eventually,
Yes.
you will get to the Vogon ship. The goal on the Vogon ship is to collect all the items you need before being thrown off the ship. And we all know how that happens. If you didn't get them all, restart the level, because it will let you continue on. And if you haven't guessed, this is the part that we discovered that we didn't have everything that we needed, and we're on level 11,
Right.
and have to go all the way back to 3 because of one item.
Yes, and it's very tricky, and I'm not even sure, again, without hints, we probably would have played this game for 3 days.
Minimum.
Because you just don't have a clue as to what it is you need to get to where you want to be. Getting off the Vogon ship with all of the devices is tricky.
I'm going to say that the game might not actually be as difficult as it is, because after you've solved the puzzle or got the hint and were shown the answer and you look back at it, all the clues were there. If you took the time to actually read everything you were supposed to read and thought about it, and things that just seemed like an offhand comment aren't an offhand comment, but are literally telling you exactly what to do, you could solve the game. But nobody reads that much of
Right.
video game stuff.
Right.
You don't read the text, but you have to read the text to finish this game.
You do. You absolutely have to.
So, of course, you're thrown off the Vogon ship, and now you're on the Heart of Gold. This is the level with the most rooms. This is basically going to be the hub for everything else that happens in this game.
I'm laughing because when we got to this level, you asked me to draw a map.
Yeah, and we should post the map, but he swore that I couldn't.
And if you're old enough to remember playing text games, then you know how difficult it is to map out the directions that you have to go in order to get to where you want to be.
Yes.
And so it's lines and circles and squiggles and dashes, but in this particular area, you're without a visual clue as to where you are, which the 30th edition allows you to see. You can get yourself lost completely. But,
Yes, absolutely.
And the map that I drew was functional, but certainly not beautiful.
Right. And the graphics that they added for the 30th anniversary edition did help tremendously in orienting you of where you were. I think I have all of the rooms listed. So you start out in the entry bay. There's a bridge. There's the galley with the Nutrimat. There's Marvin's room. There's an engine room and a small access space. And then
Right.
obviously there's corridors going to and from all of those. But I
Yes.
think those are the ones and all of that. So you're going up and down and left and right, or port and starboard. And here they've got buttons that you could just click, so you didn't have to type starboard every time. You just click the right. So that was a big help. And then your main goal is really figuring out how to get in the dark.
Right.
You finally get out of the dark. The first thing you have to do is find out how to get back into dark.
Mm-hmm.
And once you're in the dark, you're then going to jump back in time and, I guess, fix some mistakes that were made, not in your past with the game, but past in their universe.
Correct. This is where it diverges from the book story, from the radio series stories. It bounces back and forth in time to facilitate the moving forward of the game.
Yes. And if you don't successfully change all of the things that you were supposed to go back in time to do, then the game isn't going to move forward and you won't have the piece of inventory that you need to actually finish the game. So part 5 is Trawl, and this level is actually easier than it first seemed. Because when you go to any of these text adventure games, you have no idea what you're supposed to do. So as you fail and try and fail and try, fail and try, eventually you learn what you're supposed to do, and then it's really easy to just do what you need to do. And the more you worry about what you have to do, the less you'll be able to actually figure out what you want to do. So honestly...
Now, does that mean that they've reached beyond the legal limit of stress
and anxiety? Yes. Well, I was going to say that don't panic is essential advice for the whole game. All right, so you finish Trawl, jump back to the dark, then you're on the Heart of Gold again. And then you get back in the dark, and it's going to take you somewhere. Part 6 they call Damagrin. For this level, you're actually playing as Zaphod.
Right.
So you jump into the consciousness of Zaphod when he is at the christening of the Heart of Gold, and he's going to steal the ship.
It's not really obvious in my opinion, how to get through this level.
No, it really isn't. And when we eventually watched the walkthrough, one of the things I thought is, why in the world would anybody do that?
Exactly.
You know, this was the one that had the least obvious choices, even after knowing the answer.
Correct. It wasn't a logical progression, at least the way I saw it.
No, absolutely not. And it was just like, well, this would have taken forever to figure out, because you'd be standing there with not knowing what to do, and then you would die. So after you finish the Damagrin, back to the Heart of Gold, back to the dark. You'll come out somewhere. Part 7 at the party. For this level, you are Trillian.
Right.
This is the party where she met Zaphod and Arthur and that whole thing that they talk about at the beginning of the book that bumped everything up to infinitely improbable that they got picked up.
Right.
It's another short, simple level with, of course, a few ways to mess it up where you have to do it again. But I think you can accidentally do this right if you establish good habits at the beginning of the game.
Yeah, this one really only has one basic function that you have to do. And as we said before, the computer is generating a random sequence of which of these areas that you're going into each time. So if you fail to succeed the first time and die out of that scene, you're going to get another opportunity to go back into that scene and succeed.
Oh, yes, absolutely. So unlike the beginning of the game,
right,
you get multiple chances to complete the levels and not have to replay everything over again. You finally finish at the party. Back to the Heart of Gold. Back to the dark. Where do we come out? Part 8 was called The Earth Revisited. This is the same first scene, except this time you're Ford.
Correct. And again, here's one where you just have to read everything.
Absolutely.
And when you read everything, you might stumble into the answer, but it's not related to the story in any way.
No, this is definitely a divergence from the book.
Right. So it became a little puzzling, and I know we had to hint our way through that particular scene.
Yes, but once we were told the answer and then went back to the game, we're like, well, that's what it said. and again, there's nothing that is said, well, I'm going to change my mind on that. Not everything that is said is just an afterthought or something. There are red herrings and a lot of useless stuff that they make you get and do that really have no...
Oh, absolutely. This is one of the unique features of this particular game is, well, I don't want to give it all away, but the fact is when you play these kind of games, you expect that anything that you can pick up or interact with, you need to pick up and interact with.
Right, or else why would it be there?
Exactly. When you play this particular game, you pick up a bunch of items that never become important. But you wouldn't know it while you're playing it, so you have to pick everything up.
Right. And for this level, if you go back as forward, if you play everything and it turns out exactly the same way it happened in the beginning of level 1, you're going to have to do it again. And you're going to have to figure out what it was that happened, because there's very little obvious correlation. If you really think about it, you can figure it out. But you know.
Yeah, because we were restoring and replaying levels and areas there.
Yeah, save your game a lot.
Yeah, it even tells you that, make sure you save it. This game's going to kill you a whole bunch of times.
Right.
But because we were saving and replaying, I wonder if you fail to do this scene right in your first playthrough and happen to get to another scene, which we're going to talk about, I don't know that there's a way back from that. I think it's one of these areas where it's going to let you die no matter what you do.
Yes, I think so.
So this one has a significance to it that isn't obvious until you've succeeded.
Correct. Right. But so you finally have succeeded, and then you're back in the dark and back on the Heart of Gold, and then back in the dark, and you come out somewhere else. Part 9, they call the War Chamber and the Maze. Now, they are going to pick a random line that you typed at some time. It's like move whatever you typed, they're going to choose that line, and they're going to give you this traveled through the wormhole all the way to the war zone where the two opposing generals and one's wearing the black bejeweled battle shorts. And they even have black bejeweled battle shorts in the game. So that whole thing happens. You're on one of those ships, and you're listening to a conversation between
the Gugugvunt
yeah, good
and
luck.
the Vlahurg.
Yeah.
The Gugugvunt and the Vlahurg officers.
Yes. One of the things I found interesting about this level is even when you complete it successfully, you think you died.
Yes, that's correct.
And so we're like, oh, but we've got that, so I think we're good. So, of course, back in the dark, back on the Heart of Gold, back in the dark, one more time, you come out inside the whale. So now you're in the whale. There's not a whole lot you can do inside of a whale, and you know what the whale's fate is going to be. So you get what you need, and you wait, and then it's dark.
Right. Now, I don't think this is a giveaway, but just we'll mention it's a flower pot. And
Yes.
I thought that was kind of funny because, again, the flower pot is another one of those pieces of storyline that goes on and on later into the book.
What I found funny is that it was a flower pot,
Yeah.
but it's a bowl of petunias.
Right.
So the flower pot is in the whale,
Right.
and outside the whale is a bowl of petunias.
Right, the bowl of petunias, and those of you that are like hitchhiker files are going to know how the bowl of petunias and the flower pot are related. But it's just funny that they put the flower pot inside the whale, in
yeah.
this particular game.
Yeah. So you finish, you're in the dark, back on the Heart of Gold. But now, hopefully, you have everything that you need. And then there's a lot of different things that you need to do, and I don't want to go into anything because I'm not trying to give you a playthrough of the game. But basically, now that you have everything, you're just assembling everything the way you believe it needs to be assembled, and you've got to find a certain robot who has ignored you the whole game.
Right, and I was going to bring that up because I was convinced, based on the way Marvin was coming into the game each time, that we were supposed to determine a way to stop him from leaving. It just seemed obvious to me that that's the kind of thinking the computer game would have. And I was completely wrong.
Yes, yes. Yeah, I was equally convinced that because he keeps coming in on a regular basis, there's something we need to do to get him to interact with us. And he would ignore us and leave every single time.
Yep, there's another robot in the story that you'll probably intersect with that also seems like a good lead at the time, but doesn't actually do anything.
Right, yes. So a couple of little hints about the 30th anniversary game on the BBC website. There's shortcut typing. So when we're watching the walkthrough of some guy playing it, we realize that you don't have to actually type out the whole word. There is a minimum number of letters that you can just type. And for those of us that played the game that long ago, we understand that. Mm-hmm. But it's still hard for me not to type out entire words. So that's why I really liked the buttons.
Yeah, I was getting a little lazy there. I could type port pretty quickly, but I was definitely clicking on the starboard button, so right. I didn't have to type that out.
Yeah. And then one of the frustrating things in the beginning of the game is that there's only so much that they let you carry.
Right.
You think you're going to need everything, so you want to find a way to get everything. What we did was little by little as we could, we took everything all up to one room, the bridge.
Right.
And it's like, dump everything here. Yep. Because we have to come to this room every single time. So dump it all here, and we'll just take what we need when we think we need it. And then when we're watching our hints, we're watching the guy play, and we're like, oh, you can do that? So there is a workaround of your only so much you can carry. I'm just going to let you know that it exists.
Right. It's, yes, it exists. I'm trying not to give too many hints.
Right. If you want to play the game, put a sponge on your desk because you're going to be beating your head. But it's worth a look, even if you just look up walkthrough. The walkthrough that we watched was 25 minutes. So 25 minutes gets you through the game if you click everything correctly. And in fact, it would be less than that because in the dark, the guy we were watching kept going to the same place over and over. He could never get to the new place. So there was a lot of wasted time of him having to go to and from places he's already been.
Right. The dark scenes, you'll learn very quickly, are formulaic. And once you understand the formula, you can shorten the playthrough.
Absolutely.
But it does require you paying a little bit of attention. And that's all I wanted to say about that.
Okay, right.
Thank you, Forrest Gump.
I hope I can fix that.
Are you going to fix that?
At the beginning of this episode, I clearly stated my overall impressions of this game. So now that we've gotten to the end, what are your overall impressions of this game?
Right. I will say again, and I know I'm repeating myself here, that when I played the game originally, I was able to get through to the level of the Vogon ship with the Babelfish dispenser and never figured out how to get the Babelfish. It's I think it's like a 5-step process.
Yeah. And
if you do it in the correct sequence, it works just exactly the way you expect it to. Again, it's one of those areas where if you fail to do something at the very beginning, you're going to get to this scene no matter what, and you won't be able to have what you need to accomplish what you're trying to accomplish. And if you don't know that you needed it by having failed every time you played it, then you're going to just look at that screen and curse and yell and scream.
Yes.
And the other thing I want to say, though, is that because the BBC did this with their anniversary thing, they have a very good, well thought out hint page associated absolutely. With the game. And what I liked a lot about the hint page was it literally treated itself like a hint. I mean, you eventually would tell you the answer if you didn't get it, but it said, "Are you sure you want another question? You want to ask that question? Sure. Okay, here's another hint. Are you sure? Here's another hint.
Yeah.
Okay, here's the answer."
Yeah, it wasn't, I want a hint, and they just tell you the answer.
Right.
So you'll have a problem, and you'll look, and there's 8 hints underneath it. And you're like, all right. And you're like, what's the first hint? Like, well, I know that.
Mhm.
Hint 2. Well, of course. Hint 3. Who needs that hint? And then eventually you'll get down to where you're stuck.
Oh yeah, and that's what I loved, because we're 3 hours into the game, and he's like, "Okay, here's the 4th hint. Oh, we knew that. Here's the 5th hint. What the heck are they talking about?"
Yeah.
Oh, I know. You remember in the first scene where we were supposed to, and I'm like, yeah. Oh, guess what? We got to go back. We got to play that scene again.
Because that wasn't a part of the In the Dark rotation. I am absolutely happy that I finally went through the whole game and played it farther, because I got past the Babelfish, I think, by cheating, and then I was going to play as long as I could, and then I got stuck walking around the Vogon ship with everybody deserted me. When you first get there, Trillion's there, Zaphod's there, Ford is there, and then they all go to the sauna. And you can go in the sauna, but they kick you out of the sauna right away, and you feel refreshed. So you cannot interact with any of the characters. And then Marvin shows up, but like I said, he's ignored us the whole game. So I just started walking around having absolutely no idea what to do. So having a buddy to talk with and kind of logic things out is also a much, much better way of playing this.
Right. No doubt, when we played this game together, we were able to be much more successful than I was individually.
Or me. Yes.
But I don't want to overemphasize it, but the hint scenarios and walkthrough made it playable.
Absolutely. Absolutely. All right. Well, I think that is a great place to stop this episode. Do you have anything else to add?
Not that I can think of.
And say goodbye, Brian.
Smell you later.
Oh, there we go. It's a hint. Thank you for listening to Digital Watches Are a Pretty Neat Idea. Look for us the first Thursday of every month for a full episode. We will also release a bonus episode later in the month. A very special thanks goes out to Luke, Max, Greg, and Tim Lesnick for arranging and performing our opening theme. We would also like to thank our talented friends and families for their voice work on our introductions and commercials. For this episode, special thanks goes out to Dr. Julie Lesnick for our opening. Visit our website at digitalwatchesareaprettynetidea.buzzsprout.com, where you can find links to all my Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy inspired t-shirt designs. You can find us on Facebook and YouTube as Digital Watches Are a Pretty Neat Idea, and on Twitter at WatchesIdea. If you'd like to contact us, our email is digitalwatchespodcast@gmail.com.
This has been a Froods for Thought production.